And good afternoon. My name is Holly Dinnany. I am with Family Partners of Morris and Sussex County, and I am welcoming you to our weekly Lunch and Learn program. This is a virtual lunch with an expert. So we are very glad that you've taken time out of your busy day to be with us. And we understand that you might be nibbling on a sandwich or sipping on some soup and you don't want yourself on camera, and that's a-okay with us. But I will tell you that at the end of Dr. Verni's presentation, we would like to take a little picture of all of our happy faces on the screen of coming together today. So keep that in mind that towards the end of the presentation, I might ask you to turn your cameras on just so we can see your smiling faces. But Lunch and Learn is for you. It's lunch with an expert. I will encourage you to use the chat function if you have a question or if you have a topic that you would like to have our speaker address. He will allow time for at the end of the presentation for a few questions. And I also want to remind you that, let me see here, we're recording this presentation so that you don't have to take crazy notes. I think Ken is looking forward to us having a conversation about a really important topic, which of course is sustaining health, hope, and meaning in challenging times with mindfulness and self-compassion. So, Dr. Verni, when I looked at your background, I'm very excited to have you with us because you're a man who I think knows his stuff. You are the founding director of the New Jersey Center for Mindful Awareness, and you've been a student and practitioner of mindfulness meditation for over 20 years, working with an interesting variety of folks doing trainings and workshops from ranging from the United Nations headquarters, Google, to high school students and teachers and administrators. And I really like to see that more recently you're doing work with residential treatment programs for teens and wellness recovery programs for adults with mental health or substance abuse difficulties. So I love that you're coming to us with lots of experience and bringing your message to many people, because I don't know if you know it or not, but we're in a pandemic. And that kind of seems to amp everything up a bit. So I'm going to stop yapping. I am going to welcome my friends as they come in. And I am turning it over to Dr. Verni, who is going to, I hope, lead us to some interesting thoughts today. It's all yours, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much, Holly. It was a very nice, pleasant introduction, and I appreciate that. Yeah, happy to be here to, be a part of this. It sounds like a wonderful, kind of routine that you do. How often do you do it, Holly? Is it monthly? I'm sorry, or oh yeah,
We're weekly. No, we do it weekly,
Oh,
and actually once a month, the third Thursday we do it in Espanol. So this is kind of our presentation time during that, and then we also do some programs on Monday evenings, actually, where we bring speakers in, hoping that we have more of an opportunity to meet with parents who, I don't know, might be homeschooling their kids, working from home. So we just try to keep conversations going, Ken.
Yeah, thanks. Wonderful. Yeah, we'll have to talk via email about some possibilities here. I could offer your folks. Yeah. So, oh, well, so here we are. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing, actually, thank you. And also congratulations, right? Because anytime we pause in the midst of our day to do something to attend to our well-being is a good moment, and it's a good choice, right? There's so much in our lives that pulls us forward, right? The urgency of our mind pulls us forward. The urgency of the culture pulls us forward. Or the news feed and the phones and the social media all just kind of can pull us through our lives, and we miss our lives in a sense, or we feel frazzled and frayed and exhausted. And some of that is just because we're juggling and doing a whole lot of things together, each of us. And but I guess what I'm going to try to talk about is how to find little gaps, little moments, right in the midst of our lives, where we can stop and pause and settle, even if it's just a breath, right? It can be tremendously supportive and sustaining for our health, our well-being. Our body loves it. Our immune system loves it. So that's the general idea. I'm going to have to also keep close watch on the time. Part of the side effects of doing as much meditation as I do is that I tend to kind of talk a little slower. I take pauses. And when there's a short amount of time, I often, I have to just be attentive to that. So I'm not going to say much about myself other than what Holly already said. This is something that I live and breathe. I've been doing it for actually like for 30 years. I started when I was 21 practicing meditation myself. And it's just been a tremendous help in my life. And it is currently a tremendous help through this time, these unsettled times. But so my thought is that we will, I want to move in and out of both doing some practice together, so we just really can have this time itself being an activity of self care, as well as talking about self care, because it really wouldn't do much good if the whole time I'm just going on and on about self care, and it's just more sort of information. So I want us to like actually pause and practice a little bit. So that's my thought and my intention. Yeah. So let me start with these words by a poet, Martha Postlethwaite. It's called Clearing. And so she says, do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. Hmm. So, uh, you know, all of us, either you're kind of so part of your job is kind of helping others, or part of your life is just helping others. You have loved ones, people you're trying to take care of, passions about what needs to happen in the world, and touched by the difficulties that we see, and it's so important to both honor that and not suppress it or deny it, but to relate to it in a way that's careful, and that is by taking care of ourselves along the way, right? And the more I have a slide. I don't have it today, but this Abraham Lincoln said, if I had 6 hours to chop a tree down, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. So in other words, we have this task in front of us, and we might want to rush into it, and yet it's so important to make sure that the tool's in good enough shape, right? And so in our lives as human beings and as caregivers, we are the tool. Yeah. And so we have to take care of ourselves. And in taking care of ourselves, we're in turn being, making ourselves that much more available and flexible to care for others. So some of the underlying themes in my heart and mind as I kind of begin here with you all today. So why don't we just actually, so let me see, the roadmap I have that I wrote down. I want to, we'll take a little pause here and arrive, and then I'll do a little bit of explaining a little bit about mindfulness, and then we're going to move our bodies a little bit with some mindful awareness, and I want to touch in about self-compassion. We'll do a little compassion practice, and then have a conversation, and all that's going to happen in 50 minutes or 45 maybe, so I don't get Holly too nervous. Okay, so again, there'll be time to kind of explain this a little bit more, but in some ways what's beautiful about this is it almost requires no explanation in a sense. So I'm going to just invite all of you to take a moment and pause, yeah, and to and as I offer this, it's also like a little bit of a roadmap for maybe future moments when you might do this. Yeah. And so the first thing is, if you're comfortable, is to let the eyes drop a little bit. You don't have to close them, but if you let them drop just a bit, and you're dropping away from the screen, and you can hear my voice. But the dropping of the eyes for me is always like it's a little cue, right? It's like, okay, I'm dropping the eyes. I'm dropping my attention inward. So as you let the eyes drop, you drop your attention into the felt sense of the body. And real simple stuff like the feet in contact with the floor, the press of the sit bones in the seat that you're sitting in. So we're dropping our attention into the present moment experience. And so there's this perhaps maybe some sense, or maybe you can see, can you touch into a little bit of certainty, right? There's no, I mean, it's pretty clear that there's this body, and there's contact with the earth beneath it, and this body is breathing. And so just letting your attention rest on those simple truths, right? There is this body, and I can sense and I can feel it. I can feel the support of the earth beneath it. And I can feel that breathing is happening. Now, of course, the mind is going to keep kind of knocking at the door and, hey, you want to think about this? Or, well, what about that? And so we learn how to be in a kind relationship with that. We say, okay, thanks, but right now I'm just really want to be here. And the more interest you can offer these simple truths, these simple sensations of touch and breath, the less challenging maybe the mind will be. So what if we're all signing in from different places, and yet we've all got the same seat beneath us, right? There's this solid, stable, timeless presence of the earth beneath us. Seeing what it's like to sense and feel that contact with the earth. And maybe, there's a chair, maybe there might be one or two floors between you and the earth, but it's there. And the solidity, the stability. And the earth's lived through many changing seasons, and, you know, all the different ebbs and flows of human conditions and experiences. And it's here in this sort of timeless way. And we're of this earth, right? The breath that you're breathing in, right, has been oxygenated by the trees and the growth of the earth. There's minerals in our bones that are of this earth. So just this brief momentary pause. And then letting your eyes slowly open if you had closed them. And you might take in the room that you're sitting in, and then your eyes kind of find their way back to the computer, and you see all these names of people who are also participating in this moment together. Everyone's trying to find their way. Well, okay, so just we'll leave it there for now. So it was a little brief mindful pause. Um, and so one of the ways that I like to play around, in school, they used to tell, they still probably tell us, I don't know, but stop, drop, and roll, they would say, right? If you're, and so for me, that's always a little kind of a memory thing, right? To stop, pause, drop attention into the body, felt sense of contact, breath, and the rolling is rolling out the welcome mat. Just allowing what's here to be here. That's the non-judgmental awareness part of mindfulness. Well, so I think uh, hmm, I guess I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the videotape, as they say, or I'll go to the PowerPoint. Oh yeah, see, this sometimes I do this. I have to remember not to just click on the PowerPoint. I have to click on share. Otherwise, I'm looking at the PowerPoint and you guys can't see it. But so I'm gonna click on to this. Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of what we just did. This cartoon, one of the mouses, right, says, "I had an epiphany." Yeah, he stopped. He or she stopped. Yeah, and paused. And lately I've been looking at this with a little new eyes and saying, well, did the mouse have an epiphany and then stop, or they stopped and then that allowed them to have an epiphany, right? So both kind of come into play. Yeah, but finding our way back into human beings instead of human doings, right? We just get lost in the doing. We kind of lose sense of ourselves as human beings. And so any way in which we can kind of just drop a little bit out of the doing and into being and into the heart space. Um, and you might notice sometimes, and this is what I love about the practice, because it fits so well with the values of our the system of care, is that we can come to recognize, oh, you know what, there's more right with me than wrong with me, right? The mind has got a never-ending to-do list about self-improvement or better this and less that and whatever, and some of these things, okay, yeah, we might need to pursue them, but when we can pause and stop and drop into this kind of core common humanity, we say, yeah, I'm doing the best I can. And maybe there's more right with me than wrong with me. So it's a nice message. And it's there for us. We just have to stop and listen. We have to pause. Um, so yeah. So then just to touch into this for a bit, a lot of us, we're in the midst of this, incredible, challenging and unsettling time. And maybe we've gotten used to it a little bit, which is kind of an odd thing on some level. But, we've never, none of us, I think, are over 100 years old. So we haven't lived through a global pandemic before. Right. And so here we are. And we, obviously we don't have time to touch into this fair, but your lives may have been touched by a loss as a result of the pandemic, or certainly losses in terms of social contact and a loss of certainty but maybe there are people in your life that you've lost. And it's important that this quote here by Maggie Smith, and this is from a book she's writing about grief, and maybe I'll say it first and I'll try. She says, "You're not betraying your grief by feeling joy. Yeah. You're not being graded and you do not receive extra credit for feeling miserable 100% of the time. Find pockets of relief and even happiness where and when you can." Yeah. So, you know, for how this touches me is that with the pandemic, I've been able to work from home. Um, and so I'm still able to make a living, and I actually have a little more time to be around the house. So I say, oh boy, this isn't too bad. But then I know that at the same time, there's all this difficulty happening, and people's lives are being turned upside down. So how do I enjoy a moment in the garden and yet at the same time be in contact and in touch with all that grief that's going on? And so to really know that by allowing myself a little bit of joy, I'm not, in a sense, dishonoring the grief that's there, or my grief or others. And so I want to invite all of you to understand that as well, and actually to know that that allowing and cultivating and finding little bits of relief and joy are so important when you're grieving, or even when you're dealing with a challenging situation like we're dealing with, and to not um, to stay open to those opportunities. Yeah. All righty. So, maybe a pause and a breath with that, because it's hard with these little short things because we're touching into some powerful stuff here. But now, so I just have a couple of slides about mindfulness. So there's this slide here is mindful or mindful. Yeah. And so there are two beings here, and and they're both in an environment with four trees and a sun. The dog, is right there, right? Four trees and a sun, and soaking it in. And yet the person there is not totally there, right? They're in their heads and worries and the what ifs and if onlys and the to-do lists and such. So it's this is what we're talking about. We're talking about mindfulness. We're talking about really being purposeful about directing our attention into the present moment. And uh, knowing that in doing so, we're taking care of ourselves, because when our mind goes into the what ifs and the if onlys, and we're in a sense time traveling into the future, and, the body comes along for the ride, and it gets activated, it tightens, it gets stressed by the stories that we imagine. Yeah. And so the more we start to notice that, we can pull ourselves back from the thinking, planning, daydreaming, catastrophizing nature of the mind. It helps. Yeah. And so, just underneath that cartoon is this neuroscience that describes what's called the default mode network. And basically, that's when we are not steering our mind in some purposeful direction, like we're working on a puzzle, or we're crocheting, or we're fully engaged in a conversation, or we're gardening, we're cooking, and we're fully engaged in the cooking. Maybe we're having, that kind of thing. If we're fully engaged, that's one thing. When we're not, the mind kind of just defaults into this rumination, self-referential rumination. What if only, could have, should have, what about me? And it's kind of like the self reminding itself of itself constantly, and we just circle around this. This. I don't have to explain it too much. Everyone knows this, which is part of the fun of teaching this, because everybody goes, yeah, I know that. So that's called the default mode network. We default into it when we're not paying attention. And what they've discovered is that when the less time people spend circling those airports, those rumination airports, or the catastrophizing airports, the less time they spend there, I guess it makes sense, their anxiety goes down, their depression goes down, and their tolerance for themselves goes up. And then, because they're not so frazzled by all the activity of the mind, they find that their memory is better, or they have more self-awareness, and they're able to kind of follow through on things. So beneath this cartoon of saying, oh, am I here or am I in my thoughts? The more we can practice being present, the more we're kind of training our mind to be here. And that's where there is a parallel to mental training, to physical training, right? The more times we do a repetition with a bicep, the stronger that muscle gets. So then we say, I'm going to practice meditation. I'm going to practice being present. The mind wanders away. we bring it back. The mind wanders away, we bring it back. And we're really kind of cultivating that mental muscle of noticing, where is my attention, and how can I bring it back? Simultaneously, we're being kind, we're being compassionate towards ourselves. So we're also cultivating and building the muscle of self-compassion as well. So um gonna go to the next slide. So looking at things completely differently, just to oh yeah. So what I want to show you here is you look on the screen and you see the PowerPoints, and that's cube shows up, and I'm going to kind of make it erase and come up again and see how the perception of it shifts. Right. So at some point, one face of the cube looks like it's in the front, and the other face looks like in the back. Another moment, it shifts. Yeah. So let me do one more time. So this is a really helpful way of understanding practice. When I do teach this in many different places, like Holly mentioned, and I always use this because I think it's so helpful. The first first square is like, the present moment channel, right? It's sight, smell, taste, touch, here and now, sensory, present moment attentiveness, present moment awareness. And then the other square is like the he said, she said, how come, the if only, the what if, kind of like the soap opera of the mind, not in a disrespectful way, like soap opera, but just that we swirl around in these different things. And the best example I have of this is when you drive and you're driving from one place to another and you get to the destination and you feel like, gee, I don't even know, I wasn't even present the whole ride. And you could feel like you weren't there. And yet you don't have like scarves and hats hanging off of your bumper of your car. So you were in some way present. Yeah. But the present moment attentiveness was in the background, and in the front was the busyness of the mind. And then if someone steps out in front of your car, it switches and now you're fully present. Oh, here's this person and whatever. And the busyness of the mind is in the background. They get out of the way, you're half a block down the road, and it switches, and now you're back into the story. But the awareness is always in the background. Yeah. And so that's what the practice is. The practice of mindfulness is being purposeful about bringing present moment attentiveness into the foreground. And we give that our full attention. And we know that it's going to switch and we're going to get lost in the story. And then when we notice that, we bring it back. And so it's an ebb and flow and a continually reinviting ourselves to be present. And that's why I circle this with a heart, because we're not uh, getting angry at ourselves for wandering away. We're recognizing that this is what minds do, right? If I said to everybody who's listening right now, I said, all right, everyone, please stop your nose from smelling. Stop your ears from hearing. Yeah, you can't do that. That's what the organs do. The ear hears and the nose smells, and minds think. So we're not trying to stop the mind from thinking, but what we're doing is we're directing our attention into present moment sensory experience, and then it'll get pulled into the thinking, and we come on back. All right. So I think I have maybe 2 slides, then we're going to do some practice. So here's this person, right, with all the activity of the mind going on. And then what I like to highlight is, okay, so that's what's going on in the mind. But what about what's going on in the rest of the body? Yeah. So there is tasting that goes on with the mouth, and smelling that goes on with the nose, seeing goes on with the eyes, hearing with the ears, and touching and sensing the body that goes on with the sensation of touch. And so what we are doing when we're practicing, and this is where kind of, mindful movement, mindful yoga comes in. We're really bringing our awareness into the felt sense of the body, and gaining a little bit of a place from which to watch the mind and what it's up to. And so there we say, oh boy, there's that anxious thinking, right? Here's my body, and here's the felt sense of the feet on the floor and the sit bones in the chair. And oh yeah, there's a lot of anxiety in the mind today, or maybe there's a lot of doubt going on, or there's worry, or uncertainty. And so that's what's happening in the mind. And yet there's also all this other stuff that's happening throughout the body. And that helps to helps to soften the edge of the mind. And when we're fully lost in the thought and there's no space for observation, we get tortured by our thoughts, right? By our fears and our worries and our concerns. And let's see if I have another slide here. So embodied awareness, right? John O'Donohue says our bodies know that they belong to life and to spirit. It's our minds that make our lives so homeless, right? Uh, it's one of my favorites. Yeah. So in other words, when we're swirling around we can feel really untethered, right? And that's why, like when we just did that arriving practice, I was trying to emphasize that groundedness and the connection and feeling that. And then there's this quote by from James Joyce: Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. Right? We live right in our heads so much. Yeah. Okay, so let's do a little bit of let's see. I'm gonna stop the sharing because we're gonna do a little moving and stretching. Uh looking at the time, keeping track here. So so here's what we'll do. Let's take a moment, and I guess we could have told you this ahead of time that we're gonna stand up. Hopefully that'll be okay. And if not, you can just figure out a way to modify what we're doing in a chair, sitting down. Well, maybe let's just stay in the chair. This way we don't cause any extra stress. So let's again, like we did in the very beginning, pause, take a pause, take a few breaths. And lately I've been, kind of inviting folks to, as you're taking that in breath, to sort of draw your attention, gather your attention on the in breath. So you're gathering the in breath in, and you're gathering your attention, kind of pulling it back from all the places that it gets pulled to. So gathering the attention on the in breath, and then offering it to the body on the exhale, and settling the body as the breath goes. So we're gathering attention as we breathe in, and just offering it throughout the whole body as we breathe out. Taking some deep in and out breaths with that intention. And then I want to invite you to just lean a little bit onto your left sit bone, and just leaning a little to your left in the chair. And then coming back to center, and then leaning a little right and coming back to center. And then just doing this slowly. And so what we're doing, it's kind of tuning our attention to notice the sensations in the body, to give our antenna of attention some time to tune into softer, quieter messages. Just that shifting sensation, moving the body left and right. The mind and thoughts are very loud, and sometimes the sensations in the body can be quieter, softer. So we have to pay attention a little more carefully. So we're leaning left and right, finding your way in the stillness. And then what about, so we're going to continue with this careful attention to the body as we bring the shoulders towards the ears. And then release them down. And so you can bring the shoulders towards the ears, crunch them up, and then release them down. And then we can roll the shoulders, bring them up towards the ears and back and down, forward. And then just rolling the shoulders with this careful attentiveness. enjoying and appreciating the movement in the shoulders. We give the shoulders a little massage. So not only are we opening up the shoulders and nurturing the body, but we're also cultivating this attention in the body. Because you could roll your shoulders and start doing your shopping list, right? So you say, "Oh, wait a second, no, let me just actually be here in the sensations of the shoulders." Changing directions if you haven't done that already. And then ending with the shoulders coming up and back and down, opening up the heart and the chest area. And same thing with the head and the neck. We can drop the chin to the chest a bit, feeling that sensation, coming back up to center, lifting the chin towards the sky, towards the ceiling, and then back to center. And we can turn our head to the left, look over the left shoulder, and back to center, and then look over the right shoulder. And back to center. And then little circles with the nose, like you're drawing a circle with the tip of your nose, just kind of rotating the head and the neck on the top, or the head on top of the neck a little bit, one direction and then the other. And pausing here, taking a deep breath in and out. And let's see, what if we take the arms and we bring them slowly up over our head, outside, along the outside of the body, we stretch them up over the head. And again, by the way, if anything I'm suggesting doesn't make sense for your body, just, disregard what I'm offering or modify it. But if you want to bring the arms up over the head, you can try that and then slowly let them come down. And now let's do that a little bit. Let's breathe them up. And exhale them down. Breathe them up. And exhale them down. And pausing here for a moment. Let's do a little bit of tapping. Let's tap wherever your hands are. Maybe they're on your knees, or if you're sitting in a chair without a desk in front of you, but just tapping the hands either on the knees, and then eventually maybe you find your way to the belly, and you're just doing gentle tapping with the belly, hands on the belly, and then the fingertips tapping the rib cage and the sternum. And coming up a little more, chest plate here and the collarbone, a little tapping. And then working your way up to the jaw and the cheekbones, maybe the upper lip. Let's not skip that. Tapping with the left hand and the right. And then onto the temples and into between the eyebrows and the area of the forehead and the scalp, top of the head, down the back of the neck. And then let's go up and down the arms. Put the left arm out and we're tapping up and down the left arm, palm facing down and palm facing up. And then clapping the hands and doing the same up and down the right side. And now just kind of maybe shaking out the hands and the arms. Wow. Let's see. Let's try to do this in the seat. We're going to bring the arms up overhead and then out to the side and then up overhead. And then we're bringing them down with a ha, right? Now, if you were standing, you would just kind of maybe even just bend your knees a little bit and come down. But we're going to go up and out and up and down with a ha. So it's kind of like we're coming up and out and up. And then it's like all your sack of worries, just drop them on the floor. Right? So up and out and up, and then let them out. Up and down and up and All right, shaking out a little bit. And then maybe just pausing here for a moment. We'll settle back in, finding some way to sit that feels comfortable and stable. Feeling like the reverberations of that bit of stretching and shaking we've done. Tuning into the coming and going of breath. And maybe for a moment, if you remember that cube that I talked about, what's it like? Can you bring present moment awareness to the front of the mind? In other words, really the sensations of the body in the chair, the feet on the floor, the touch of air on the skin. Sensations of moving and stretching in the body as the in-breath comes in. And the sensations of release and softening, contracting as the out-breath goes out. And letting the breath come and go in a rhythmic way. And as the in-breath comes in, noticing the waves of sensations that emerge. A little bit of stretching in the belly, expanding, lifting maybe. And then the softening, the collapsing, contracting on the exhale. So we ride the waves of the in-breath sensations and the out-breath sensations. And as the out-breath goes, just waiting for the next in-breath to come, catching that wave, riding it in. And whenever it becomes the out-breath, you ride the out-breath out with your attention. Okay. So again, we'll just pause there, maybe slowly let the eyes open. Breath keeps happening, right? Breath happens all day long. You know, if we had more time, one of the things I like to have people remember when they're doing that kind of practice is that you were breathing. When you were asleep, you were breathing. You didn't have to do anything. Breath comes and goes. So when you're doing a little bit of breath awareness meditation, part of the, like it could be something you could explore and play with. How much can I just trust that the next breath will come? Let it come as long as it needs to come. Let the out breath be as long as the out breath needs to be. And I'm not trying to direct the breath. I'm just trying to be present for it. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that was a little bit of awareness practice of the breath. And let me go back to see if there was anything else I wanted to share. I wanted to touch in about self-compassion too before we do that. So let me go back to the presentation mode. So this was our little arriving, moving, stretching, breathing. If you notice this graphic, this inhale and exhale, Maybe for a moment, see if you can sync your breath up to it. Inhaling and exhaling. And if you notice, the exhalation is longer than the inhalation. Yeah. And so that's something that you may know already. But the more, if we can kind of just let our exhale be a little longer than the inhale, that could really help settle us. Um, Another little take home tidbit. So, wanted to touch in with the self compassion piece as well, right? Because mindfulness and self compassion go together so, like, so well. And so, what's self compassion? Yeah. And again, if you know, you see what I say here. It says we give ourselves the same kindness and care and understanding we would give to a good friend when things go wrong, right? And think about that, right? If someone was having a hard time, or maybe they made a mistake, or they forgot to do something and said, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to send that letter, or I forgot to send that email," what would you say to them? You'd probably say something like, "Yeah, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. You'll just take, you can take care of it. It's not the end of the world. It'll be okay. Don't go so hard on yourself." Right? Do we do that to ourselves? Do we, or do we kind of give ourselves that kind of, invitation to be kind, to be gentle? Very often, not so much, right? So this whole dimension of self compassion is like this this U-turn on the self on compassion. We offer ourselves the same kind of kindness we might offer others. And so there are these components here just to touch in on it. So the mindfulness we talked a little bit about, we practice a little this noticing what's here, right? So that's one piece of the self-compassion where you say, "Oh boy, there's some, there's a sense of being overwhelmed in this moment." And I meant to say that in the very beginning of this training, that if you're feeling overwhelmed, of course you are. Right? I mean, we're in the midst of this global pandemic. We're in the midst of this uncertainty about the election that we're still kind of waiting to find out about and all. So of course we're feeling unsettled. So let's use a sense of overwhelmness as a model. So we're feeling overwhelmed. The first thing is, yeah, being mindful of it. Oh, yeah, I feel there's overwhelmed feeling is here now. We notice what's here. And the common humanity is to recognize, yeah, that all people in all shapes and forms and all over the world feel overwhelmed at times. So
It legitimately tastes like I'm eating moisturizer. It is
I'm hearing
so strong.
some thing
This is a
coming through
delicious
right now
chocolate cake, but I
from
think
a commercial. But so we that if I'm feeling overwhelmed, that I'm this is a part of my being connected to that I'm a human being. And then maybe from there I can offer some kindness. So um hmm, well, maybe I want to give time for question and answer, but maybe in our conversation we might be able to kind of explore this a little bit more. But one thing, I'm not gonna go through this is a whole long thing, but I'm thinking but it's here. Maybe I'll put it up so that it's on the video and that people can look at it and you have it in the handout. But you can see, right? Recognizing when we're feeling stressed or struggling without being judgmental towards ourselves. The kindness is being supportive as if we would offer the same kind of thing to a friend, and the common humanity recognizing that you're not alone in having difficulties, or that we all make mistakes, we all struggle and challenge. And the mind can get very, very isolated and very punitive inside, and so to kind of open and to widen can help us. And when we're offering compassion, we offer someone, we offer them a warm gaze. We might offer them like a hand on their back or something, and we might talk gently to them. So actually, I think what I want to do is Well, I'm going to just finish this slide you just saw. This is just some basics here of, I have to move my thing so I could read it, but there we go. So just some general first aid, psychological first aid, coping, right? Protect, direct, connect. Protecting, how much stressor am I exposed to, so to speak? And I think what for me comes mainly is the social media and the news. To really be careful. How much of that am I taking in? What's my diet? In terms of media, and because that can just keep us going, and then really directing our energy towards some healthy coping strategies and staying connected. So just a quick couple of things here about protecting ourselves from extra stressors, directing energy in a positive towards healthy behaviors, staying connected to others. Same thing again, a little bit repetitive. ABCs of awareness, of self-care, staying tuned into my needs and my limits, balance between work and play, and again, staying connected to others. So I'm going to stop the share right now. Let's see. Here we go. Come back to the group. And maybe just, I see I have 8 minutes. So I'm going to take, if I can, take 3 minutes to just have us do a practice, and then we'll open it up for questions, if that's okay. So the last thing that one of the last slides was that how do we offer compassion to someone else? And it was the warm gaze and the soothing touch and the gentle vocalizations. So if you could take a moment now, just again to stop and pause, drop into the body. Maybe you drop the eyes a little bit. You roll out the welcome mat. What's here? Taking a breath or two, gathering attention on the in-breath, offering it to the body on the out-breath. And what if you just if I can invite you to experiment with this, take a hand and just put it to your heart. And I know this might feel a little squishy for some folks, but okay, notice the squishy feeling, But once you get through that a little bit, let the soothing touch of your hand on the heart just sort of sense and feel that. And can you offer yourself some kind words internally? It's okay, Ken. You're doing the best you can. You have 45 minutes, 50 minutes. You're doing the best you can. And you sense and feel maybe that you're the recipient of a warm gaze, or you're holding yourself in your own warm gaze, offering yourself kind regard. So we hold our human experience in kindness, offer ourselves a warm touch to the heart, and we let ourselves know that we're doing our best. Okay. So I think I'm going to pause there. Tried to cover a lot of ground in a short time. But let's see. So yeah, any points of clarification, or anybody? What was that like to do to engage in some of these activities? Anything new? You're familiar with these? You do this all? If you have something that you've been doing. Yeah, I've been doing that sort of warm touch to the heart for a little while now. It's really been helpful. Or you have a some kind of meditative practice that helps you, happy to hear that. Or a question. Or Holly, if you have some point that you think would be helpful to be clarified. I know we only have a few minutes, but
No, but it's funny. I feel like I should be a jazz radio show host or something. I've been knocked down a few levels as far as my energy, in a good way, I think.
yeah.
But my question for you, Ken, this has been really a nice time together, because I think, it's hard for us who don't do it regularly to know how.
Holly,
Yes.
your voice is not clear.
Yeah, it's coming through, but it's kind of like a little staticky. But
Someone else like to ask a question?
no, I think she was just saying that you're coming through a little staticky. But
Baby steps. I'm asking for baby steps for incorporating mindfulness.
Okay. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like the brief little pause that I talked about in the beginning, or any what's called about to moments, right? So these are really helpful. And so what I'm saying there is like, so I'm about to I've driven up to my house and I'm about to get out of the house, get out of the car and go into the house. So it's an about to moment. So let me pause in that about to moment. Okay, I've arrived and I'm about to head into the house. Or you're about to, cook dinner and you take a moment. You say, okay, okay, gonna get started on this whole dinner process. Or even an email. You're typing an email and you're about to hit send. You take a moment, you pause. Okay, may this email be received well, and then you click it. So little small micro pauses, little small micro moments where we just drop out of that urgency of doing, and you take a moment to pause. So that's a practice. I like to encourage people to when they wake up in the morning, to put their feet on the side of the bed and take a breath or two, and then maybe even stand up with a little bit of awareness. And then, they take off and they do all the things they have to do in the morning. But what about starting your morning with just a little bit of presence, a little bit of, even maybe gratitude? You want to add a little gratitude, you just take a moment. Okay, may this day go well. It's a new day or something. So these things can sound kind of somewhat trivial in a way, but if you start playing with them and practicing them with them, they often have a surprising impact on the urgency of the mind. Yeah.
Dr. Verni, I learned that from you a few months ago, and it's about awareness.
Yeah.
Getting up in the morning and to be aware of my body, of my, like lay down on bed first and be aware of what is around me. I learned that with you, and it's been very helpful. And also the other thing that I learned is to be kind to myself.
Yeah.
And if you are kind to yourself, you are able to be kind to others.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So it was a good learning at that time. It was at the beginning of the pandemic when you start. So I was doing it in the morning, and so
very good.
Everything changed, and I had to stop watching you in the morning, but it was very helpful for me.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So little. Thanks. Is it Luz? Luz. Yes. Thanks, Luz. Yeah. Great to hear that was useful. And yeah, so these two things, that's right, the presence and the awareness and the self-compassion, the kindness, they're really, really strong allies when we're going through such difficult times. Yeah. And I'm going to send to Holly so she could get it all out to you. Through Rutgers, I'm still doing every day, like I just did it right up till 12 today. From 11:15 to 12, I do a 45-minute mindfulness and resilience practice gathering. And so we do a little mindful stretching and movement, a little invigorating, and then we settle down. We do about 15 or 20 minutes of sitting meditation. So from 11:15 to 12 every day. So we could get that link out to you, and everyone's welcome to join if you can squeeze it in. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else out there? I know we're coming right up, or we already are on the time. Maybe we need to stop. Yeah. But I'm happy to answer more questions or respond if needed.
So I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Ken, for giving us a little time to unwind and to connect with ourselves. I think it was well received by everyone. So if you guys wouldn't mind, we're going to try and do a group picture. If you want to turn your camera on real quick, we're trying something new. So we're just adding to our collection. If you want to turn your cameras on for a quick picture, that would be great.
Wonderful.
Give it a couple more seconds. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do a 3, 2, 1. And then a backup just in case. 3, 2, 1. All right, got it. Thank you so much for coming. And I think that's everything. We'll see you next week if you want to join us again next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry for the robot voice.
No worries. You can understand what you're saying. It just sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Okay. We'll be sending out a copy of this presentation and also some helpful handouts that Ken has shared, and we'll include information on your gathering, Ken, if you can get that to me, your 11:15.
Yes.
I'll be glad to share that.
Okay, wonderful, Holly. Thank you. And I'm happy to be able to
Dr.
contribute.
Verni.
Thanks for all the work you do and everything. And be well. Stay safe.
Well, thank you.
All right. Bye now.